A very long time ago, in a tiny village in Nigeria, there was a farmer named Okeke who was very poor. He had a young daughter called Nneka. When Nneka was just a little girl, her mother passed away. This made Okeke and Nneka very sad. After Nneka's mother died, Okeke had to work all alone on their small farm. He worked from sunrise to sunset every day. Even though Okeke worked so hard, he could hardly earn enough money from the farm to buy food for him and Nneka to eat. They were struggling and barely surviving. Money was very tight, but their love gave them strength. Nneka, Okeke's daughter, was a beautiful young girl with pretty features and glowing skin. However, she was very shy and did not talk much. After her mother died, Nneka tried her best to help her father Okeke with work on the farm and household chores. She was a good daughter. When Nneka turned 17 years old, she met a young man named Chika from a village nearby. Chika was very handsome, with a bright smile and charming personality. He knew how to make Nneka feel special with his sweet words and flattering compliments. Chika told the shy Nneka that he loved her. Even though she was quiet, Nneka could not resist Chika's charm. She fell for him deeply. A few months after meeting Chika, Nneka realized she was pregnant with Chika's child. At first, Nneka felt very sad and scared. Having a child before marriage brought shame in her village. Nneka worried about what her father and others would think. She loved her father dearly and did not want to disappoint him. Nneka had always been a good, obedient daughter. But now she had gotten pregnant outside of wedlock, which went against her family's values and traditions. Tears rolled down Nneka's cheeks as her belly started to swell bigger with the growing baby. She did not know how to break this shameful news to her beloved father Okeke. So, she decided to tell Chika first, hoping he'll be excited about the news and probably come to see her father Okeke to discuss marriage plans. But things didn't go as she planned. Instead, she got the shock of her life when she told Chika that she was expecting his child. Chika became very angry, shockingly accusing her of being unfaithful and claimed the baby could not be his. He refused to accept any responsibility for the pregnancy, wanting nothing to do with the baby she carried. Poor Nneka felt so alone and devastated as the nights passed and her belly grew larger with the child inside her. She knew her father would be extremely upset and embarrassed when he realized his daughter was going to have a baby out of wedlock. Their family already struggled immensely just to have enough food. How could they possibly care for a baby too? Nneka feared she had brought disgrace upon her family's good name. With a heavy heart, Nneka decided she could not bear to face her beloved father or stay in their village while visibly carrying this shameful pregnancy. She made the very difficult choice to travel alone to the neighboring village to stay with her close friend Adaku until after the baby's birth. Adaku was also unmarried, and she welcomed Nneka to stay with her family with open arms. They did not judge Nneka's situation. For several long months, Nneka lived in secrecy with Adaku's family, helping with chores as her belly swelled larger. She was thankful for their kindness in sheltering her, but profoundly saddened that she could not share this pivotal transition with her own father. As the delivery date neared, Nneka made the extremely difficult decision that she would have to leave her baby in the forest after he was born, because she had no money to care for him. Chika, her baby's father, had abandoned her and her poor father was struggling to cater for her and himself. How then can they care for a baby? It broke Nneka's heart to think of this, but she thought it was the only way to survive. One night, Nneka's labor pains started while she was alone with Adaku. Her friend helped Nneka bundle up some clothes and supplies, and then Nneka quietly left to make her way to the forest on the outskirts of the village. She found a quiet, secluded spot and gave birth alone to a baby boy. After the baby was born, Nneka wrapped him in a ragged cloth. She held him close and wept, apologizing to her newborn son for what she was about to do. Nneka's tears fell upon his tiny face as she committed every feature to memory, since this would be the only time she would see him. Then, with her heart shattering into pieces, she gently laid her baby on the forest floor and walked away, leaving him behind. Nneka prayed to the gods that her son would be cared for and kept alive, since she could not do it herself. In the days after abandoning her baby, Nneka recovered from the childbirth with Adiku's family. The kind friend did not judge Nneka for the desperate actions poverty and stigma had forced upon her. When Nneka was strong enough to travel, Adiku gifted her with what little money and food she could spare for the journey back to her village. With nowhere else to go, Nneka eventually returned home, feeling deep shame but also relief to be reunited with her father Okeke after the traumatic ordeal. She did not tell him about the baby she had been forced to abandon. Nneka simply said she had been staying with a friend during a difficult time. Okeke, of course, did not press his daughter for details he could sense she did not wish to share. Though deeply relieved to have his beloved Nneka back home safely, Okeke could perceive a profound sadness lingering in her eyes. He worried for his daughter's well-being but did not pry. Nneka had always been a gentle, obedient child, and he trusted she would share what burdened her if she was ready. So father and daughter carried on with the hard labor of farm life, each silently carrying their own heartbreaks from the past. The following morning, Nneka's abandoned baby was found in the forest by Chioma, the queen of the village who had been going to that forest every morning to pray to the gods for a child of her own. Chioma was a kind-hearted and beautiful queen. She was loved by the people in the village and by King Ibuka. Though King Ibuka and Queen Chioma were married for 10 years, the queen had not been able to conceive a child despite visiting many respected medicine men and healers. So when the queen heard the helpless cries of the abandoned newborn baby in the forest, she was overcome with joy, feeling that her prayers had finally been answered by the gods. The queen quickly but gently carried up the baby, swaddling him in the soft shawl she had been wearing. She pulled back the cloth and looked upon his tiny face in awe, marveling that the gods had sent her this unexpected blessing. The queen knew that he was a miracle child meant for her and the king. With a renewed hope in her step, she hurried back to the palace carrying the precious baby against her chest. When she showed her husband the abandoned baby, she told him breathlessly that they should raise the little one as their son and heir to the throne. Though surprised, the king agreed happily to accept the child as their own son, knowing the gods must have had a greater plan in allowing them to discover the abandoned baby. Together they chose the name Namdi for the baby, which meant father's blessing, as they believed the baby was a blessing from above. From the very moment the beautiful queen held Nnamdi for the first time, it was clear this was an exceptionally special child. He stopped crying instantly in her embrace, gazing at her with intelligent eyes as if he recognized her. As Nnamdi grew over the following months, he achieved all the typical baby milestones at a stunningly rapid pace, walking, talking and understanding things at an advanced level for his age. When he started to crawl, Nnamdi was constantly venturing off to explore the palace gardens and grounds, exhibiting a special bond with plants, animals, and nature itself. The palace servants would find the young prince amidst the flora, tenderly petting the most skittish creatures who bizarrely did not run from his touch. They claimed to see butterflies landing serenely upon Nnamdi's tiny outstretched hands and head as if in a revered trance. Despite his royal status, Nnamdi was never heard crying or fussing like a typical baby. He was extraordinarily patient, gentle and caring beyond his years from the start. Nnamdi seemed to hold an intuitive intelligence and depth of emotion that stunned all who encountered the unusual young prince. The king and queen considered themselves blessed beyond measure that the gods had chosen them to raise this wondrous child as their own after years of being barren. Though neither could have comprehended just how pivotal and legendary Nnamdi's life path would become. When Nnamdi was 10 years old, there was a terrible famine that caused huge hunger across the land. Crops could not grow, rivers dried up, and many children became very sick from lack of food and water. The king and queen's subjects came begging for help, as their own children were deathly ill and they could not afford the medicine man's remedies. The young prince, Nnamdi, after hearing the cries of the king's subject, ventured into the forest. He amazingly knew about plants and herbs that could cure the most lethal sickness. He came back some hours later with baskets full of roots, nuts, mushrooms and leaves that most people did not even know were edible. Following Nnamdi's instructions, the sick children ate these foraged forest foods and were cured of their illnesses. News spread quickly that the young prince could heal. Families came from all over the kingdom to seek Nnamdi's help and learn what plants were safe to eat. With incredible patience for one so young, Nnamdi taught everyone about the special plants and herbs that could keep them healthy until more crops and livestock could be raised. Because of Nnamdi's knowledge and generosity, countless lives were saved from the famine. As Nnamdi grew older, his gifts became even more amazing. He could communicate with all types of animals, birds and forest creatures without any fear. Nnamdi also had incredible wisdom in solving disagreements between people. Whenever there was an argument or conflict, the king would call him into the conflict room and he would bring calm and guide both sides to understand each other and make peace. Nnamdi spent much of his free time studying the ways of the kingdom's respected medicine man named Chuka, who was known as a dibia. The prince observed how Chuka used natural herbs and medicines to cure illnesses. Chuka was impressed by Nnamdi's deep knowledge at such a young age. When Nnamdi turned 15, the king and queen decided it was time to tell their son the truth, that the queen had found him abandoned in the forest as a newborn baby. They feared Nnamdi might feel hurt to know his real parents had left him, but Nnamdi just smiled calmly. He said he had always realized the king and queen were not his birth parents, but assured them it did not matter. They had raised him with love and he considered them his true family. On Nnamdi's 16th birthday, Chuka performed a special ceremony officially naming Nnamdi as a dibia, a healer and spiritual guide like himself. This was an incredible honor, as most dibias were not initiated until old age. But all could see Nnamdi was a true prodigy. Over the next few years, Nnamdi's legend spread far across the entire kingdom. His knowledge of herbal remedies combined with a mystical spiritual ability allowed him to heal ailments and illnesses no other dibia could cure. No matter who came to seek his help, whether a poor farmer or wealthy nobleman, Nnamdi treated them all with equal compassion and kindness. He never turned anyone away and did not ask for payment, only that they show charity to others in need as well. This humble wisdom and generosity made Nnamdi beloved by everyone who knew him. When the king became very old and could feel his time left on earth was ending soon, he called for Nnamdi. Though Nnamdi was still a young man of only 20 years old, the king declared he would become the new ruler and leader of the entire kingdom after him. The king could see Nnamdi's good heart and amazing talents, and knew he was prepared for this great honor. Just a few days after naming Nnamdi the next king, the old ruler passed away. Nnamdi took over the kingdom as the new king at his young age. Under King Nnamdi's guidance, the lands experienced a wonderful golden time of peace and wealth. The farm crops grew bigger and better than ever before. Sicknesses and illnesses became quite rare among the people. Word of King Nnamdi's wisdom, healing abilities, and great leadership spread far across the kingdom. People traveled from the farthest villages just to seek his help, advice, and guidance. King Nnamdi became renowned by all as a skilled healer and benevolent, caring ruler. His fame grew far and wide during this prosperous era. 10 years later, when Nnamdi was 30 years of age, he fell deeply in love with a kind and beautiful woman named Uloma. The people of the kingdom celebrated when Nnamdi and Uloma decided to marry. Even though Nnamdi was the powerful king, he wanted a simple wedding ceremony, not a grand event at the palace. Instead, the humble king requested they hold the marriage in the very forest where he had been abandoned as a tiny baby many years earlier. This was a very meaningful and special location for Nnamdi's wedding to his bride Uloma. The choice of returning to that forest showed Nnamdi's humility despite his royal status. The wedding was a grand yet humble event as the wise and kind young King Namdi, adorned in his royal marriage ceremonial robes and regalia, took his bride Uloma's hand beneath the large trees where his life had begun as an abandoned baby in the forest. Tears of joy flowed from the elderly queen's eyes as she watched the child she had discovered and raised as her own son now joining with his wife. But she was also saddened that the former king, her beloved husband, was not alive to witness this great and meaningful occasion. After the beautiful wedding ceremony binding Namdi and Uloma as husband and wife, rumors began to spread throughout the entire kingdom about the peculiar location their new king had chosen to marry. Villagers from all corners became curious, wondering why the young ruler did not host his wedding inside the luxurious, well-furnished palace as expected. It was then that the incredible story of how Namdi was discovered as an abandoned newborn baby in that very forest by the queen finally became known to the people. News traveled like a brushfire from one village's storytellers to the next. Tales were spun of the desperate circumstances that must have forced a mother to leave her infant child in the forest, and of the spiritual destiny that saw him discovered and raised as a prince. The shocking, tragic yet miraculous origin story of the young King Namdi's life soon reached even the most remote regions of the kingdom. And among those who finally heard the long-kept secret was Nneka, the impoverished woman in the village of Owerri who had indeed abandoned her newborn son in those very woods over 2 decades ago, to avoid the shame of having a child out of wedlock. Now a haggard, aging woman, Nneka had long resigned herself to never knowing the fate of the baby she had wept over leaving to the forest being's care, all those years ago. She had lived that time in isolation and secrecy, first carrying the mysterious pregnancy alone. So when the incredible rumors reached Nneka's ears about the king she had known only as a mythical figure having been discovered as a forsaken baby in that very forest, she could scarcely allow herself to consider the possibility. Could the child she had been forced to abandon to avoid destitution and scorn have survived against all odds? And not merely survived, but been raised as the kingdom's beloved prince and new king? The very idea seemed too impossibly poetic to be true. Yet Nneka knew she had to investigate, and had to seek an audience with King Namdi to know definitively if he was truly her long-lost firstborn son. She could not escape the niggling feeling deep in her soul that this astounding convergence of fate was akin to her desperate decision, all those years ago. One early morning not long after the royal wedding, the elderly and tired-looking Nneka made her way on foot to the main road that led to the kingdom's grand palace. Tattered cloth wrapped firmly about her body, she began the long journey from her village. Nneka walked for the entire day, stopping occasionally to rest her weary legs but never wavering from her singularly determined path to the palace gates. As she finally beheld the immense, glittering palace in the fading evening light, Nneka felt overwhelmed by the opulence compared to her impoverished village life. The guards offered to escort Nneka inside if she could convey her purpose. With nervousness but a reinvigorated spark of hope, Nneka softly uttered that she has vital information for the new king's ears alone regarding his origins. Though skeptical of such an outlandish claim from a ragged villager, the guards saw no deception in Nneka's earnest, weary face and eyes. So they agreed to allow her entry and seek an audience. And so, mere weeks after the history-making ceremony, Nneka found herself ushered into the gleaming throne room where the new King Namdi received her, radiant in his royal regalia yet exuding the same transcendent humility and wisdom that made him so beloved. When Nneka and Namdi's eyes met across the beautiful marble room, Nneka felt a powerful feeling stir inside her soul. It was like a cosmic recognition spanning the many decades since she had last seen Namdi as a newborn baby. On his part, Namdi also felt an indescribable yet undeniable connection deep within him upon seeing this wrinkled, weathered woman before him. Without speaking any words, there was an immediate spiritual understanding between Nneka and Namdi, a bond that went beyond simply knowing one another. Tears streamed down Nneka's aging face as she threw herself at Nnamdi's feet. She was sobbing with remorse but also relief at finally being allowed to see the miracle of the child she had been forced to abandon so many years ago. The child who had grown into this wise and enlightened man, a healer and ruler more precious than any treasure. In that moment, Namdi too understood and accepted the undeniable truth of how destiny had first set the course of his life amidst such seeming tragedy and sorrow when he was abandoned as a baby. Yet rather than feeling anger or resentment, the young king felt only compassion and empathy for the desperate situation his birth mother Nneka had faced long ago. Namdi knelt down and tenderly raised the weeping Nneka to her feet. He then embraced her with unconditional love, understanding, and forgiveness. No words were needed in that profound moment of a mother and son's lives finally reuniting and finding peaceful resolution across the spans of time, pain, and destiny itself. In that meaningful hug, the cycle that took decades was finally complete. Both the mother who gave birth and the son she gave life to understood the important roles they each played in the special path that allowed such beauty and enlightenment to come from humble, difficult beginnings. The emotional reunion when Nneka finally met her long-lost son Namdi became an important moment in the kingdom's history. News of their tear-filled hug after decades apart spread inspiration throughout the land. People celebrated how the abandoned child they had seen as a spiritual prince had found peace and a redeeming second chance with his birth mother. In the years after, Namdi continued his life's work of spreading wisdom, healing, and compassion as the kind ruler. Nneka remained by her son's side, able to make up for the past by helping raise Namdi's own children. The family's full-circle destiny served as a powerful story of faith, forgiveness, and humanity's connection to forces beyond our understanding. When Namdi finally passed away an elderly man, his legacy and joyous reunion story became an eternal beacon of hope. The abandoned child's journey embodied how light can rise from unimaginable darkness through destiny's indescribable plan. Namdi's life story achieved a transcendent enlightenment spanning generations. If you enjoyed this story, drop a heart emoji in the comment section. Support us by subscribing to her channel, also turn on post notification to get updates when we upload new stories. Thanks for watching.